पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we have seen so far the different kinds of people, some bhaktas, some yet to be bhaktas, some people who do not look upon Bhagavan at all and they don't understand, some people who understand, and then some people who are constant bhaktas, some people who see Bhagavan as the truth of themselves and see Jnanam and as a form of worship, the pursuit of Vedanta as a form of worship. These are the kinds of people that Bhagavan has covered. And then Bhagavan declares himself to be the truth of everything in the universe in 4 verses 16, 17, 18 and 19. So now we come to another kind of devotees in 20 and 21. Another kind of devotee. Who is this devotee? Who is very much into the first portion of the Veda. And what is the first portion of the Veda? A treatise on wish fulfillment. Karma Kanda. What is Karma Kanda? Karma portion. And what does the karma portion do? The karma portion is just interested in how to do karma, how to get the results, basically. So, it is not any different from the kind of pursuits that you have. What kind of pursuits you have? How to get what I want. So, the means are different. So, the means are different in the sense that if the person who is not pursuing the Veda will go out of their own, desires. They will have a lot of desires in their head, and propelled by those desires, they will go and try to fulfill those desires. Here now they have a manual for what to desire. And so it's like some kind of a catalog. So the Veda gives a catalog. So either you can have your own catalog in your head, catalog of desires and where to get those things from, what to do to get those things, or you can subscribe to the Vedic catalog which tells you this is wonderful fun. What is wonderful fun? Go to heaven. Really? You think I like it? Yes. What's there? And then it will give all the descriptions, and by the end of listening to the description, even the most, even the person with the most viveka could easily fall into the trap. What is the description? Yama can't come there. Nachiketa himself says this. na tatra tvam. Swarge loke na kinchana bhayam asti. In Swarga there is no fear at all. Na tatra tvam. Tvam means Nachiketa is telling Yama, there is no entry board for Lord Yama. Everyone allowed except Lord Yama. And then, na tatra tvam na jaraya bibheti. There the people don't have a fear of old age. It's like a time warp. Time stands still. You go there and you stay there, and then no wrinkles, no hair loss, nothing. Time stands still. Then what happens after that? Na tatratvam na jaraya bibheti. Oh, even further, ubhe tirtva ashanaya pipase. There is no ashanaya. What is ashanaya? Desire to eat. Oh, I don't like this heaven. I'm a foodie. I don't want to go where I can't eat. There's no desire to eat. That's a boring place. What will happen to the desire for all kinds of things that I want? No, you will have the desire for food, but you won't have the desire to eat. Well, that's downright sadistic. To have the desire to eat but not have food, what do you mean? No. You don't need to actually eat the food. The Devas live on some kind of a subtle level. The bodies are subtle bodies, so it doesn't actually have to eat. You don't need samosas, cake and all these things. You don't need. What do? You just go and sniff. And you are happy, you are immediately satisfied. Think about it. No need to cook, okay? And then no need to clean all the dishes, no need to clean. And then what else? And no need to brush teeth either. Even better, no need to floss, no need to brush. You just go near the food and you siphon off the taste from the smell itself. And this is what we see even in the puja rooms and in the temples. What do they do to Lord Dakshinamurti? Pranaya swaha, apanaya swaha, as though eating. Here. You just go in front of the altar and go like this, they are satisfied. You make 108 laddus, modaks, for who? Ganesha. And then after it comes back, after offering, you count, there won't be 106. He is not eaten too. He gives you back 108. That's why next time also you will make 108. If he started to eat all and left 2 for you, you will say, forget it, I'm not going to make any more. So when you are a Deva, that's what it is. You go to Devaloka, you become a Deva, kind of, for the time being. You get an honorary Deva status. And then you just sniff at the food. And then not only that, there is no cleaning up to be done, no cooking to be done, no cleaning up to be done. You can just go to the neighbor's house if they are cooking and just stand there and sniff and then fill yourself up. Not only that, since you're not taking in the food, there are no digestive issues. No need to take prebiotics, no need to take probiotics, and certainly no need to take antibiotics. No biotics of any kind. Why? No gut issues. You don't have to think what has happened to my gut health, and then intermittent fasting and all these things. You don't have to worry about it all. This is how heaven is advertised. Ashanaya, desire to drink. Pipasa, Ashanaya, desire to eat. Pipasa, desire to drink, is not there. Ubhe tirtva, having crossed both. What? Ashanaya pipase. Swargatigo modate swargaloke. So, the person rejoices in Swargaloka, going beyond all the needs of this gross body, the mind. Yeah, and also there's no core issues. The unconscious mind is suspended, so you are not reactive all the time. Oh my God, I didn't have this my way. Oh my God, I'm not having this. Oh my God, somebody dissed me. Oh my God, somebody looked at me wrong. No such complexes. All the complexes are kept at the gate. You collect it as you exit. Like in some places, cell phone is not allowed in government buildings and all. You have a bin or a bag there. You put your devices, go in, and then when you come back, you collect it. So all your issues, mommy issues, daddy issues, all the issues, you put it in a bag. Before you enter, there you are free of the issues. See, now don't you feel like going to heaven? Yeah. It's so well advertised in the very Veda. No issues. You're always in a good mood. You're always happy, you're always smiling, you're always jovial. No issues at all. Anybody says anything, you don't take it personally. You don't make a big deal out of it. And you don't plot revenge. Oh, you said that to me, wait till I say this to you. What will you say? No, I have to plan it now. I don't know what I'll say. I'll plan the rest of my life wondering what to do. And so there is no resentment, there is no vengeance to be eked out, there is no resentment, there is no pain, there is no core issues, there is no sorrow, there is no reactivity. What is there not to like? So the Veda says all these things, and then the one who is sick of samsara, sick of themselves really in samsara, the one who is constantly saying, why am I like this? Why do I fly off into a temper? Why am I sad? Why am I upset? Why am I, why am I having so little patience? All these, this kind of a person, for such a person, who does not have access to Vedanta or who does not have the Viveka to sit and study Vedanta, what happens to them? They fall for this. Let us see how they fall, literally and figuratively. Attention, tune change. Traividya mam somapah putapapah यज्ञैरिष्ट्वा स्वर्गतिं प्रार्थयन्ते ते पुण्यमासाद्य सुरेन्द्रलोकम् अश्नन्ति दिव्यान् दिवि देवभोगान् ते तं भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालम् क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति एवं त्रयी धर्ममनुप्रपन्नाः गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते. Yeah. So these two verses talk about the desire for heaven, what they do to gain heaven, and then what happens to these heaven-bound characters. So this is what it is. Traividya. Traividyaha means the people who are adept in the three Vedas. They are called Traividyaha. Mam yajante, they pray to me. Who are they? Somapaha. Somam pibanti iti somapaha. They drink the soma juice. Why do they drink the soma juice? Because they are doing a little ritual. Swarga kamaha somena yajeta. There is a Vedic mandate. Not a mandate, but a statement. And what is that statement? Those who are desirous of heaven, O ye people desirous of going to heaven, what should you do? You please worship with soma juice. And this soma plant was pressed out of, they pressed the leaf for the juice, they pressed it out of extinction. We don't even know what the soma, where the soma plant is. It's gone. Why? That shows how badly heaven was desired. How many times they kept pressing it and offering it and pressing it and offering it, and then whatever prasada is there, you drink it. Somapaha they are called. So Somapaha, Putapapaha. Putapapaha means their papas are relatively gone. Why? Because if you keep doing yajnas 24/7, 365, there is no time to rob a bank. Yes, so you are not into papa karma. You are not doing wrong things. Why? Because you are just praying all the time. You are saying, send me to heaven, let me go to heaven. After I die, of course, no rush, no rush, oh Bhagavan. I didn't mean right now, but please, bhej do mujhe, send me to heaven. Please send me to heaven when my life is up. And then that's all they are praying night and day and keeping on offering soma juice, and then whatever soma juice is left as prasada, they are, guzzling that down, and then they are called somapaha. So because they are so much in, not because they drank the soma juice, they are putapapaha. It's not that they are purified of papa because they drank the soma juice. Why are they purified of papa? Because they are into a life of prayer. Yes, it is kamya karma. Kamya karma means it is a karma for, what is that? Fulfilling a result. Kamya karma. We have 5 types of karma. Nitya karma, things that have to be done every day, like daily pujas, etc. Naimittika karma, like Shraddha, all these things we were discussing yesterday at the satsang, Pitrupaksha, all these things, that comes once in a while, Naimittika karma. Then we have Kamya karma, number 3. Things that I want to do. It's nowhere mandated, you must desire, you must go to heaven. I want to go to heaven, therefore I will look for the appropriate rituals and then do those rituals. Number 4, Nishiddha karma. Nishiddha karma. What is Nishiddha karma? Forbidden karma. Things you are not supposed to do. Cheat, lie, go against dharma, etc. Thief and rob people, all these things you are not supposed to do, but all this is called Nishiddha karma. Then because there is Nishiddha karma, what is the karma type 5? Prayashchitta karma. Karmas of atonement. These are the 5 types of karma that are there. And so, if you want moksha, you have to follow a certain pattern of karma. Out of these 5, which one you will do, which one you will not do, this you have to follow. Why? Because in order to get moksha, you have to prepare the heart for moksha. It has to grow up, it has to be ready. I have to have a tranquil mind, I have to have a non-reactive heart, I have to have an accommodative heart. And so I have to prepare myself, and for that what do I need to do? Become a karma yogi. How do I become a karma yogi? By not wanting the results of action, and by making the results of action, giving up the results of action for the sake of self-growth, emotional maturity, spiritual growth. So therefore I am not focused on the results of action. So then if one is a karma yogi, a mumukshu, jignasu, they will do the first kind of karma or not? Nitya karma? Yes or no? Yes. So therefore, it's not an excuse to stop brushing your teeth, nitya karma, and say, I'm not brushing my teeth. Why? Because I'm a mumukshu. There goes your excuse. So nitya karma should be done, yes or no? Yes. Naimittika karma should be done, yes or no? Yes. Kamya karma should be done. Yes or no? No. And then Nishiddha karma. Should you do things that should not be done? No. Atonement. Prayaschitta karma, yes, because even if we don't want to do certain wrongdoings happen. So I should atone. So number 3, karma type 3 is cut out. What is that? Kamya karma. So here, desire for heaven, is it a kamya karma? Yes. So it is clear that these people here are bhaktas all right, and they have a little bit of antahkarana shuddhi, but they are not working for antahkarana shuddhi. They are not working for atmajnanam. They are not mumukshus. Neither they are mumukshus, nor they are karma yogis. They are just simple baby bhaktas. That's all they are. And so why bhaktas who are focused on heaven? So then somapaha, so then they keep offering soma juice, putapapaha. Then because they are such intense bhaktas, what happens to them? They are relatively, their heart is free of wrongdoing and intent to for wrongdoing. And then yajnaihi ishtva mam. So, having invoked me, Bhagavan, through various yajna, etc., and then when I appear before them, what do they ask? Swarga, send me to Swarga. Again, no rush, but send me to Swarga. Send me to Swarga when my life is up, because they got confused. They think Swarga means it is immortality. They haven't read the fine print in the pages of the Vedas. So they think it is immortality, and so what do they say? Send me there. Swargatim prarthayante. And then what does Bhagavan say? Tathastu. According to your karma, you will get the result, no problem. Tathastu, so be it. And then what happens to them? Te tam bhuktva. Having enjoyed, what did they enjoy? Swargalokam Vishalam. They did a complete tour of heaven. They did not leave even one corner out. They saw the gardens, they saw all the places where the devatas live. They went to Indra's palace. They did a tour of the palace. And then what else did they do? They took a selfie with Indra. And all this they did. Te tam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam. They did a full tour of heaven, enjoyed their stay, got autographs of the heavenly nymphs. Who are they? Rambha, Urvashi, Menaka. And then they also sang with the yakshas, kinnaras, gandharvas, celestial musicians. All this was happily going along, and then suddenly, currency shortage. Currency shortage. There is no such thing as a free lunch, they say in America, and same thing for heaven also, there is no free bee in heaven. Not only that, you pay for it in advance. You jama karna padta hai, you already deposit some things and then go over there. What do you deposit? What is the currency for heaven? Punya. Punya is the currency for heaven. Just like dollar is the currency for the United States, punya is the currency in heaven. Annoying it is because you don't know how much punya, what item costs until you have already enjoyed it. So then the punya is slowly draining. How much punya can you have? How many yajnas can you do? It's finite amount anyway. So kshine pute tam bhuktva, having enjoyed they tam swargam bhuktva, what? Vishalam swargalokam. Tam vishalam swargalokam bhuktva, having thoroughly enjoyed all the corridors of heaven, all the corners of heaven, inside and out. Kshine punye, when the punya runs out, what happens? Martyalokam vishanti. They have to come back. Where? To the Martyaloka. What is Martyaloka? The world of mortals, where immortality is just a dream. Immortality means eating goji berries. That's all it is, some antioxidants. That's all it is. They have to come back. There is no other option. Why not permanent Swarga? There is no such thing as permanent Swarga. Why? Because you are the permanent one going to Swarga. There cannot be two permanents. You have already usurped the meaning of the word permanent. How can there be another permanent? You have usurped the meaning of limitless. You have usurped the meaning of permanent. So how can there be anything else? There can't be anything else. So, te tam bhuktva swargal. So heaven cannot be outside of you really. And so te tam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye, when the punya is down. The currency is down. Martyalokam vishanti. We should have one more word, punaha vishanti, punar vishanti. They re-enter, not just enter, because they were already there before. They re-enter the world of mortals. Evam, in this manner, Traidharmam anuprapannaha, these proponents of the first portion of the Veda. Anuprapannaha means they follow everything exactly as told. These proponents of the first portion of the Veda who have fallen for the glamour of heavenly life, thinking it to be permanent because they don't know what is permanent. They too desire moksha, but they think heaven is moksha. They don't know anything else. So then what happens? Martyalokam vishanti. Evam trayi dharmam anuprapannaha gatagatam labhante. Gatagatam means they always gain the things that are gained in time, which are what? Lost in time. Whatever you gain in time, you lose in time. So you had a lovely experience of heaven, and then what? You can't bring back anything from there here, and you don't even have a memory in the next life. And then what do? You desire it all over again. What a waste of life. What a waste of time. Next life also you do the same. Press the soma juice, drink the soma juice, offer the soma juice, go to heaven. Very nice. Ooh, Indra looks like that. He's much more handsome than I thought. And then what else? Click, 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 click. Take too many pictures. And then what? Come back. Who are these people? Kama kamaha. Kamam kamayanti. First kama is objects, the second kama is desirers. These desirers of various objects in time. What do they get? They get the finite. Gata gatam. Gata plus agata, gata gata. Things that come and go, they get in time. And then whatever they gain in time, they lose in time. These are the kinds of sad bhaktas. Bhaktas nonetheless. But what kind of bhaktas? Using Bhagavan as a tool to fulfill their desires. By contrast, the next verse, very important verse, Ananyashchintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Yeah. So, by contrast, here are the ideal types of bhaktas, because to show the contrast, this is a typical Shastra's methodology. In the Upanishad also we find. First, the wrong type of bhaktas are given and then the right type are given, so that we can choose. We can choose with discrimination. After avoiding that which should be avoided, we can choose. So, who are these people? This verse can be applicable for jignasus as well as jnanis. Jignasus means what? The people who are desirous of this knowledge, jignasu. And then jnani, people who already have this knowledge. This verse can be applicable for both. So now, what is it saying here? Ananyaha chintayantaha mam. They are what? Ananyaha, non-separate from me. Not fair. The other bhaktas are separate from you. And only these. So that means what? Bhagavan, you are partial. Other bhaktas, they are separate from you. And these are non-separate from you. Explain yourself here. It's not that the other bhaktas are separate from Bhagavan, but they think themselves to be separate from Bhagavan. So it is from the standpoint of the bhaktas this statement is made, not from the standpoint of Bhagavan. Okay? So ananyaha means those who consider themselves non-separate from Bhagavan. Chintayantaha. And what kind of chintanam? Chintayantaha, contemplate upon me. Shravana, manana, nididhyasanaihi. Adi Shankara will say in the Bhashya. Shravana, through the proper study of the Veda, through listening to the teachings. Manana, through removal of doubts, etc. Nididhyasana, through the removal of habitual orientations, habit patterns, by contemplating upon the words of the Shastra as the truth of oneself. So, ananyaha chintayantaha, for these ananyas, who chintayantaha mam, who contemplate upon me as the truth of themselves, ye janaha, these people, paritaha upasate. Paryupasate. Paritaha means all around. They see only me. You see, there is a big difference between the previous bhaktas, who are also bhaktas, and these bhaktas. The previous bhaktas use Bhagavan as a means for gaining something. And these bhaktas they don't use Bhagavan. For them, Bhagavan is the gain. So the previous bhaktas use Bhagavan as a means to their ends, and these bhaktas, for these bhaktas, Bhagavan is the end. There is no means, there is no usage. For whom Bhagavan is the end, there is nothing else. This is the very, 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 very big difference. Because previously what? I need Bhagavan. Why? My family life has to be okay. I need Bhagavan. I need to pray. Why? The Guru has moved one house, and then I need to make sure it will have good results in my horoscope. And then I am praying to Bhagavan. Why? Because I need peace of mind. I am praying to Bhagavan. Why? May all the annoying people from my life go away. Poof. Yeah, this is why I am praying to Bhagavan. But this is the first instance. The second instance, what does the prayer look like? Who are you? Why am I so attracted to you, O Bhagavan? When will I know myself as the truth of, when will I know myself, the truth of myself as non-separate from you? When will I gain you? These are the questions they are asking. They don't want anything from Bhagavan. They are not saying, take care of my family, be the burglar alarm in my house. And then what else? Do this for me. Do that for me. They are not saying that. They are saying, be with me. I want you. I don't want what you can give. You see the difference here. You see the inner maturity. Because these bhaktas know that Bhagavan is the only thing that is infinite, and Bhagavan is the truth of oneself, so that's all they are focused on. So they are not interested in anything else, and they also know that in order to gain this Bhagavan, what must they do? Study Vedanta. Nothing else will work. Absolutely nothing else will work. Absolutely not. They know that. So what are they doing? They are busy pursuing Bhagavan through Karma Yoga. You see, previously we determined that the people who are into heaven and other short-lived gains, using Bhagavan for those gains, they are not Karma Yogis. Why? Because they are doing Kamya Karma. They are focused on small karmas or even big karmas. They are focused on the results of action. Here, these people are not focused on the results of action. They are focused only on their emotional growth, because they know that upon their emotional growth is contingent what? Moksha. Moksha comes for those who have emotional growth. The Shastra speaks to them. So they are busy preparing for moksha, and they know that Bhagavan is the only thing that they have to catch hold of. So they catch hold of this Bhagavan for the sake of Bhagavan, not for the sake of anything else. Do you see the contrast? Bhagavan as a means to an end, whereas for these people, Bhagavan is their end. So, for these people, ananyaha chintayantaha maam ye janaha, these people paryupasate. Paritaha upasate means they worship. They don't have to go to a temple to worship me. They see me everywhere. Yatra yatra manoyati tatra tatra tava pada pankajam. Wherever the mind goes, I see yatra yatra manoyati madiyam tatra tatra tava pada pankajam. Wherever my mind strays, alights, what do I see? Your lotus feet. I see your feet instead of whatever that small name and form is. Instead of that name and form, I see the truth of the name and form. This Bhagavan that has entered into the world, whose presence is everywhere, I see that Bhagavan's lotus feet everywhere. This is stage 1 of one's growth. Stage 2 is yatra yatra manoyati tatra tatra samadhayah. This is a very famous expression, also comes in that, what is that called? Drigdrishya Viveka, a very nice text on Vedanta. Drigdrishya Viveka, yatra yatra manoyati. Now the second stage is here. Wherever the mind goes, what happens? There is an absorption. The subject-object is not separate anymore. I understand, like in the morning class we saw, I am neither the subject nor the object. I am that consciousness that illumines the subject and object, free of both subject and object. So, this is the paritaha upasate. So their upasana is not in temple, their upasana is through the study of the Shastra, and their upasana is in Ishwarizing the entire universe of names and forms, seeing only the abidance of Ishvara in everything. Tesham, for such people, Nitya Abhiyuktanam, those who are constantly committed to this vision. Not kabhi kabhi. Kabhi kabhi mere dil mein Vedant ka khayal aata hai. No. Suddenly I feel, oh, it would be nice to study Vedanta. What's happening at AVG? Okay, there is a weekend retreat. Let me pop in. And then you pop in, and then what do? Pop out. Okay? Yeah, that's all it is. One person came to me during the, New Year. New Year, we have a huge crowd of people. And so one of the New Years, they said, I have been coming to the ashram for 25 years, nothing has happened. So I said, really? I said, because people come to various Swamis' retreats. So I said, you've been coming to Swami Viditatmananji's talks? No. And Swami Pratyak Bodhanandaji's talks? No. Then Swami Tattvavidanandaji's talks? No. When have you been coming? I come every year on New Year and listen to the 5-minute talk given by all the Swamis. And still nothing has happened. I said, that's not enough listening. Yeah, you have to listen a little more. A lot more actually. So, that's what is meant by Nitya Abhiyuktanam. It's not like suddenly one day I come and then pop in and say, oh, this is nice, oh, that's nice, and then go away. This has to be a regular and a committed pursuit. For all the obstacles and the inner problems to go, this has to be a committed pursuit. So for those who are committed to this pursuit, Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Bhagavan makes a pratigya. What is pratigya? Promise. Bhagavan makes a promise. What is the promise? Yogakshemam Vahami Aham. This category of bhaktas, you don't have to lift even a finger to reproduce your life. You don't have to lift a finger. I will take care of yoga. What is yoga? Oh, I don't have to do yoga? Great. Bhagavan will do yoga. Here, yoga and kshema, when it is in a compound, as I said, it has a different meaning. What does it mean? Apraptasya prapanam yogaha, praptasya rakshanam kshemaha. Gaining of that which I don't have, that is what is yoga. And protecting what I have already gained is kshema. Now, getting rid of what I have acquired which I don't want is also yoga. And then keeping at bay what I never want to acquire is also another side of kshema. So these 4 things which take up an entire pursuit. I have to look and really grab what I want. I have to demand what I want because I'm afraid otherwise I won't be given. Squeakiest, wheel gets the oil, gets the grease. So I have to squeak, I have to yell, I have to be very vocal, I have to demand what I want, I have to go after what I want, I have to be a go-getter. This is how one is socialized. No parent will tell their child, relax, don't worry. Whatever comes, you take it as Bhagavat Prasada. No parent will tell. What will the parent say? Come on, work hard, get ahead in life. Don't you see it's a dog-eat-dog world? Go forth. This is how one is socialized. One is socialized to go and get. That's why one is called a go-getter. Always going and getting. And so, such a person now has undergone a tremendous growth from being a go-getter, from being somebody who would trample other people's hopes, aspirations and dreams and then over that fulfill their own wants. From being that kind of a person, this person has become calm, tranquil, accommodative, and then totally into Bhagavan, totally into discovering oneself as Bhagavan, and then this person does not have any other agenda. For such people, yoga and kshema, what they need, what they want to have, what they want to get rid of, all that is magically taken care of. You can try it in your own life. If you seriously start studying Vedanta, all other things is automatically taken care of. Suddenly you find yourself not worried about how to attend the next retreat. The way is already paved. It's already happened. And then if you're worried, how will I get leave from the job? Leave is given. Or the job itself you decide to leave. And if you don't get leave, you get leave from the job. Okay? So some people did that to come to this retreat. And so like this, there are many, many opportunities. Once you start studying, you don't have to worry, how will I make ends meet? It just somehow happens. Because you are on a different track now. If you are not putting in your own efforts to reproduce your life, and your prarabdha is still not over, your prarabdha is still there, you are meant to be alive, and you are meant to lead a comfortable life, then somebody has to fill in. Bhagavan has to rush and say, okay, let me take care of all the needs, let me take care of all the needs so that this person can pursue the vidya, can pursue this. Very beautiful verse. Coming bang middle of the 9th chapter. Where is the 9th chapter? In the middle of the Bhagavad Gita. It is a beautiful reminder of our destiny and where we should be headed and how we have to stop sweating the small stuff. Even the big stuff. It just magically happens. A little leap of faith is needed, but then it all magically happens. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate paritaha upasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahami aham. Vahami, I carry. You don't have to carry the burden of reproducing your life. That's what happens. If you are meant to eat, food will come. You try it. Don't go to dinner. See what happens. Tomorrow you will come and tell me, nobody brought food. You told me don't go to dinner. Wait, don't go to dinner the next day also. And the next. One of these days somebody will say, oh, where is this person? Maybe I should send some food to them. It will happen. May not happen immediately, but it will happen. Because if you are meant to see, because you become like an animal, you see, in the nicest way possible I'm saying. The wild animal does not think, where shall I sleep tonight, where shall I eat tonight, nothing. It just goes and food is provided, it pounces on something, catch, kill, eat, and then what does it do? Goes under some bush and sleeps. Or stays awake all night and sleeps in the morning because it is nocturnal. Just is like that. And Bhagavan takes care. For every lion who doesn't even know how to pray, there is prey. Without prayer, there is prey. For every lion, there is prey, and then what else? And for every gazelle that could be prey, sometimes it is not a prey. It's amazing. Sometimes it escapes. And like this, in nature we see that Bhagavan takes care of the needs of all the beings. Even though they think, I am running and catching this thing, this beast. The beast thinks, I am running and catching this prey. Actually, it is not, it is put there by Bhagavan. For every predator, there is prey. And for the vegetarian animals, there is lots of grasses, lots of trees, leaves, fruits, roots, everything is given. And so, one lives like that. One is at the mercy of the universal intelligence, which is Ishvara. Putting oneself in the mercy of the universal intelligence in the form of Ishvara requires a great deal of Shraddha. Yes, I will be taken care of. What is the message one has received? Nobody loves me. Nobody takes care of me. And if I did not reproduce my life, I would find myself out, out of this ashram, out of my house. I would find myself somewhere on the roadside. I have to reproduce my own life. There is a lot of distrust in that statement, in that feeling. This is a universal feeling. Who is there to take care of me? Nobody. I have to do this. And it's okay, it is svabhavika. It is okay because that is our running capital. It is our everyday swabhava. It's not our swarupa, it's our swabhava. So, this is the fear and the distrust in which everybody lives. I have to shore up for the future. Only human beings do this. The dog may bury one bone. Most of the time it forgets where it has buried and goes away. But what does the human being do? The human being buries many, many bones. One for me, one for my children, one each for the children, one for the grandchildren, and then one for the great-grandchildren. Oh, you have great-grandchildren? No, but I hope to one day. Are they here yet? No. Even my children are not married. I don't even have grandchildren. What to talk of great-grandchildren? But still the feeling is, for 7 generations, I should do that. The dog doesn't do that. This bone is for my puppy, and for the puppy. I have to make sure that they are all okay. The bird also doesn't say, I have to build a start-up nest for my young ones. Once they fly away, where will they go? I'll just build a condo in the above branch so that I can keep an eye on them. I can micromanage their lives. They don't do that. In fact, if the bird refuses to fly away, the baby bird, the mother will nudge it, the parents will nudge it. It will fall to the ground and then somehow fly. If not, it will die. There's a big contrast in how all the animals live and how we live. The birds don't even have a degree, what to talk of a PhD. They still manage to lead their lives. And we just so much worry about the future. So much so that we compromise this pursuit in the light of trying to shore up for the future. Yes, one can be practical, one has to be pragmatic. But beyond that, one has to cultivate the Shraddha needed to just get into this pursuit and to let Bhagavan take care. Because Bhagavan is already, in fact, Bhagavan alone is taking care. You are usurping the doership, that's all. Bhagavan alone is taking care. But here, in this instance, in this shloka, what is said is that you leave the portfolio of Bhagavan to Bhagavan. You have usurped Bhagavan's portfolio. Oh, what have you planned for my life? Let's see. What? No, I am cancelling it out. I have other aspirations, I have more things. I am going to write in my own aspirations, hopes and desires. And you, mister, are going to fulfill them. This is how we do it. You'll give back Bhagavan's portfolio to Bhagavan. Let Bhagavan take care. And trust that I will not come to any grief. I will be protected. I will, because you have not been producing your life at all. It is Bhagavan only who has been taking care. You have just usurped the doership. If there is a karta at all, it is Bhagavan that is the karta, and the recultivation of Shraddha to see this fact is very, very important. Very important verse, wonderful verse. And then the next one says, the people who don't, these are what? Ananyaha. So, those who are Anyadevataha. Anyadevataha means here people who worship devatas, not other deities. That's a wrong translation. Those who worship Bhagavan as separate from themselves in many different forms. Those who worship Bhagavan from the place of separation. Anya Devataha. Let us chant that verse. Yepyanya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhipurvakam. Ye api anya devataha. So anya devataha means for whom Bhagavan is separate from themselves. And who are they? They too are bhaktas. Dvaita bhaktaha. So what do they do? So anya devata bhaktaha yajante mam yajante. They worship me shraddhayanvitaha, with a lot of faith, with a lot of love. They worship me. Te api, they also mameva yajanti. They also worship only me. So they may be worshipping many devatas, and then all the worship goes to what? Me. Why? Because there is only Bhagavan. So if there is only Bhagavan, then how can you worship anything else? Whatever you worship is what? Bhagavan. That is the idea. Yepi anya devata bhaktaha yajante mam shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya bhajanti. They also worship me alone. How? Avidhi purvakam. Avidhi purvakam means from the standpoint of duality. Without understanding the truth of me, they worship me blindly. Because they are told to do so by their religions, because they are told to do so by their parents and by their culture. They also worship me, but they worship me blindly without any, through ajnanam. Avidhi purvakam means ajnana purassaraha, keeping ajnanam right in front. So, under the spell of ajnanam, they worship me. More we'll see tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.